Speaking of education, KCSE is about to begin. There are those that have been sitting exams in the international curricula, and you're thinking about the next step, which is university admission. And people have just been cracking their heads. So getting into the final year of the academic year of my school, of my high school, what do I do next? I need to go to university. People have been wondering what to navigate that whole journey, all right? And there are companies that have come up that, help you to think through that journey, identify your key strengths, all right, so as this student, maybe they do very well with a science course or an arts course or whatever course. And then what kind of universities locally and abroad would attract such a student? Let's have that conversation. We're joined by Shayne Aman Premji. He is a co-founder and the CFO of a company called Cradle. Shayne, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. That's the hot seat of the Situation Room. How does it feel?
At Cradle, a lot of young people around the country put their trust in us to get them to the right place. So our seat is always hot.
Well said. To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb, and you have also come with the day's proverb.
So, to really welcome you, we'll ask you to tell us your proverb, which you've come with, and then we will tell you about our proverb, which we had before you came in.
Yes.
So, start with you.
Thank you, CT. So I knew that you would bring me a proverb today, so I thought what better way to come prepared than to bring my own African proverb. This one from a country north of us, a country called Morocco. Now, the proverb that I have today is as follows. Instruction in youth is like inscription in stone.
Wow.
Instruction in youth is like inscription in stone.
Hindu,
Yes.
what's your interpretation of this proverb?
Well, seeing as anything cast in stone is essentially forever, if you teach a child, they will stay with that information for the rest of their lives. N'est-ce pas?
Absolutely. Well said.
See, it's your opinion. You can never be wrong.
Indeed.
Hindu.
Look, I'm not asking for validation.
We're offering it anyway.
Thank you.
You can never be wrong.
No.
Very good. Very nice.
Lovely
Proverb.
proverb, yes.
It's actually a very appropriate proverb for the discussion that we have ahead
It
of us.
is. It is.
But let me just muddy the waters a little bit, because the proverb I had for today is a bit dour. Right. The unlucky man's hope prevented him from committing suicide. That's a proverb from the
It's
Republic
a positive proverb as well.
from the Republic of Burundi.
The unlucky man's hope prevented him from committing suicide.
Yes. If he had had no hope, he would have succeeded. But because he had hope, he didn't succeed.
He chose not to go the suicide route.
No,
Hope is a
he
good
opted not to.
It's a positive proverb, isn't it?
It's a suicide bit that I consider a bit negative.
It's just the word suicide.
That's suicide.
Yes. It's looking at it tells you have hope.
It does. It does.
Hope is a good thing.
Yes. And if you want to instill that hope, then you want to ensure that you instruct your youth appropriately. Okay.
Instruction in youth.
Yes, that instruction
It's like
becomes
inscription.
part of their life for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Yes.
What is Cradle, Shayne?
Cradle is Africa's largest higher education platform.
Africa's largest higher education platform.
So let me tell you what that actually means.
Yes.
We founded Cradle because we wanted to change the way in which youth and working professionals across the continent chose their higher education journeys. So we wanted to create a new way in which young people and working professionals searched, matched, and applied for universities around the world.
Okay. So platform. What does platform mean?
I think it's a great question. Platform refers to the technology aspect of what we do. So one of the innovations that we came into this market in Kenya with was, for the very first time, creating a single platform or a website, www.cradle.com, where students can go and actually see all of their options in one place. and compare those options, whether that option is a college, a university, for undergraduate studies, for postgraduate studies, and then go through that journey and actually do their application online in one single place. That's what the Cradle platform is.
Is it a select number of colleges and universities that are on the platform? And how do those universities get onto the platform?
So we work with more than 300 universities and colleges around the world, in more than 20 countries around the world. And you know what's interesting that we didn't know when we started this business is that universities and colleges from Canada all the way to Australia, from Ghana to Zambia, they want Kenyan students. They desperately want more Kenyan students.
Desperately.
Desperately.
Why?
Why?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've talked to hundreds of universities around the world. And what they tell us is that they see incredible potential in African students. Africa is the largest growing young population in the world. Soon it will be the largest population in the world out of any region. And these universities are smart. They know that in order to survive in the future, they must attract African talent. And what they've seen historically is that when you have Kenyan students on campus, when you have Nigerian students on campus, it improves diversity. It improves the experience for every single person on that campus.
Right. So you say Cradle is Africa's largest platform. That means it's in more than one country?
So today,
And where was it founded?
so Cradle was founded right here in Nairobi, in Kenya. Today we have a large presence in Nigeria. And we have students from more than 10 countries in Africa who have applied to university through us. In the years ahead, you're going to see the name Cradle all across the continent.
So how does this work exactly? When students who are in a respective high school or whatever, what's their first contact with Cradle, and how does the experience then unfold for you to be able to make a selection about where you would go to school? And then what's the walkthrough? Why would a student then get onto the Cradle platform? What exactly does it provide for them?
So we work with more than 100 high schools across the continent, more than 80 in Kenya today. And these are schools that range from international schools to private KCSE schools to some of the top national schools and even extra county schools across the country. Now, what we do with our high school partners is we physically go to the school and we do career talks with the students. We meet with the career counselors and the principal. And then we provide this platform to our partner schools. Now, what does that mean? So step one, a lot of the students we meet, even the ones in Form 4, even the ones in year 12, year 13, they come to us and they ask, what should I study for university? So the first step is understanding who you are as a person, understanding your child, and what is the right career path for them. Now, this is very innovative, and you might be surprised when I say this. I'm talking about career paths, not university. I think in a lot of cases, people think of university as, that next step, the end of the journey of education. At Cradle, we think of it as a means to get somewhere else. So why do you do higher education? Why do you go to university? Usually it's to get a job, to build a career, to provide for your family so that you have hope. And so the first step of this journey is to understand what is the right career path for you. And we use a number of tools, including a psychometric assessment that helps students understand what are the right career paths for them.
What is this assessment? I've heard of many times of psychometric assessments for students. What is it and why is it important?
So the psychometric assessment is really, really important. It's a scientific way in which a student can understand who they are. And the Cradle psychometric assessment is unique because not only does the student understand who they are, but it also provides a match based on who they are to what are the career paths that are best for them. So psychometrics refer to a number of different areas. So there's a personality element. There's an aptitude element. So how good are you with verbal? How good are you with spatial? Spatial is a really important aptitude for if you want to be an architect, for example. But then it also looks at what are your values as a human being? What motivates you in a job? And it puts all of these different factors together and says, here are some career paths that you should explore.
Take us through something. I mean, What are these questions that you'd ask? Or is it tests, exercises? What is it that when a student does these tests, what do they go through? And how does your platform then evaluate them?
So it's not a test, Eric. It's an assessment.
All
And
right.
big difference.
Okay.
Because it's fun. So this is not like your KCSE
not an exam.
exams. It's not an exam. It's an assessment. And when I say it's fun, some of the questions involved are questions about who you are as a person. So one of the questions on this assessment is, on a Friday night, what would you prefer to do? Do you want to stay at home and watch a movie? Do you want to go out with friends? Do you want to spend time with your family? And these are the types of personality and value questions.
You're
that help
asking
you-
a kid who has never had a choice on what to do with their Friday,
Yeah.
what they'd like to do with their Friday. I mean, this child has, for as long as they've lived so far, been told what to do with their Friday. It's either it's the end of the week, you have assignments before you go to the weekend, can you finish your assignment? Or we have something as a family that we are doing, or we are staying at home. Do they ever have a choice of, I'd like to go out with friends? Do they know that? I mean, so what are they going to answer? Most likely they're going to say, I want to go out with friends because it's a thing I've never done.
And I think that that's a really interesting thing that we found. So more than 2,500 students have done this assessment in Kenya already. And you'd be surprised. A lot of this assessment is about intuition. So psychometrics is about intuition, not necessarily what did you do last Friday or the Friday before, but when you read this question, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? There's no wrong answer. A lot of students will say, actually, I want to stay home. I want to stay home and watch a movie. I don't want to go out with friends. And that also indicates a certain personality type. And when we combine that with their aptitude, their values, there are certain careers that unfold.
How do you match essentially or present the information then to students about which universities are out there and taking on students? And then do you then do a match, or what happens in that process?
So once a student has understood what career path is right for them, and some of our students will come to us and say, I already know. I want to be a lawyer or I want to be a doctor. I don't need to do the assessment. I'm ready to apply to university. Now these students will come onto our platform and they will see all of the universities and colleges that we partner with and all of the 25,000 plus courses that are available to them. Now this is where technology comes into play. And this is why we call ourselves a platform. Because we use some really interesting technology to help show students the right options based on what they believe and what they look for. So you can filter all of our universities based on a number of different criteria. And over time, we're building more and more criteria, and we're incorporating something called machine learning so that we can make recommendations based on other students who are of a similar profile and who have chosen particular universities.
And how are you finding that universities are also innovating and adapting to make sure that, the needs that students have on this side or on whatever side then are actually met academically?
This is, one of the things that we spend a lot of time on. What is the future of higher education? What's the future of universities and how are they innovating? And I'll tell you a couple of interesting things that we found over the past 2.5 years since starting Cradle. One interesting thing is that historically, if you think about what is a university, it was very much a research-based institution. Then you had this idea of the college, or the TVET as we call it in Kenya, the vocational college that's much more preparing students for a job. Now what's happened is that a lot of international universities have realized that just being a research institution is not enough. That's not what all students want. Many students, including many students from the continent, they're going to university to build their careers. So they want a job-ready university course. So one of the really interesting innovations we've seen is that you have universities now offering courses that used to be college courses. So courses in digital marketing, courses in animation. They're also offering parts of their courses where you actually get job experience during your course. So we have a university in the UK where you can do an internship year in between your studies. And more than 90% of their students do this internship year. And you can earn a salary of up to 3 million shillings in that year in your internship, which helps you pay for your studies.
Okay. What else does it help you do, though, this internship in the middle of education?
A lot more. A lot more. So on the one hand, this internship tells you what is life in this career. What better way to know a job than to actually get a chance to do it while you're studying? But beyond that, a lot of our students tell us that the reason they love the internship year is they get to actually work in these companies and build their networks in the companies. And many times, if they perform well, they end up getting full-time employment when they graduate.
You know, the psychometric tests, psychoanalysis, any test that seeks to understand intelligence, personality, aptitudes, there are those who argue that everything that goes into the findings and the actual operation of these things were tested among white people. Now, then, because of this, they argue that when it comes to Africans, those aptitude tests may not necessarily work. Or if they do work, there is a bias. And that it doesn't actually represent, if let's talk about attitude, an attitude towards a certain situation. If it is a Western concept or a concept by what we refer to as white people, as an African, we may be looking at the same thing, but I'll view it differently. If you're talking about intelligence, now when you talk about intelligence, you open a whole can of worms. Are we talking about emotional intelligence? I mean, you know the path I'm going to. So, yes, psychometric tests do serve a purpose and they do give you clear pointers to it. But how do we know that it caters and it understands the African mind, the African psychology, the African attitude towards things, so that when the test is applied to us, we know, yes, we've been assessed adequately?
This is a good question to ask, because what we find is that a lot of innovations and a lot of technology that comes into Kenya comes from outside. It comes from the West. Cradle is actually built in Kenya, and it's built for Kenya and for Africa. So this psychometric assessment, how do we know it works? I mean, on the one hand, we have more than 3,000 young people in Kenya who have done the assessment, and the vast majority have been thrilled with the results that have come. But I'll take it one step further. The assessment was actually developed in emerging markets. And we've actually taken that assessment and we've tweaked it for the Kenyan context.
Let's talk about the tweaking. I seek to understand. How have we tweaked it?
So one of the things we noticed with psychometric assessments was that some of the language that was being used was language that's not used locally. So you might have a student who is extremely intelligent with very high aptitude when it comes to critical dissection. But if the language being used in a paragraph that you're supposed to analyze is language you've never seen before, then that's not the right way to do it. So that's one of several examples of how we've tried to localize this assessment to make it more relevant for the market.
And for it to be relevant, it means it has been tried and tested, and the results that you speak of perhaps are the proof of this particular concept. Okay, now, if one were to talk about the success rate of a psychometric test, anecdotally speaking, what would we say is the success rate of a psychometric evaluation? Let me not call it a test.
So what defines success for our psychometric assessment? The way that we think about it is, let's start with what problem are we trying to solve? So what problem are we trying to solve with this assessment? The reason we brought this assessment into the market as part of our university offering is because we were going to top schools around the country. We went to Baricho, we went to Alliance High, we went to Kenya High, we went to international schools and private KCSE schools, and we talked to thousands of Form 4 students. And one of the big sentiments that we got from them and their parents was that they were feeling a bit confused about what path to pursue in university. So they were unsure. And there was a lot of anxiety around that. And what they were looking for was some validation on paths that they could pursue. So let me be clear. The psychometric assessment is not to tell a 16 or 17-year-old that you must go into this career and this is the only career for you. The idea is to provide an element of guidance to say, these are some career paths that tend to fit who you are, and here are some resources to pursue them further.
Okay. I like what you've said, because you essentially went to what we call national schools. The national schools are fairly representatives of the communities we have in Kenya. Why didn't you go to or did you go to schools in some of the low-income areas or some of the more disadvantaged areas and some of the, not just far-flung, but far-flung and poverty-stricken areas? Or did you go? I'm assuming, since you didn't mention it, I'm asking, if you did, what then did you find?
We did.
Yes.
We absolutely did. We spent time in extra county schools here in Nairobi, but we also traveled far across the country. And I can relate to you an experience that I had in Meru, meeting with a very interesting school, which is in a low-income community. And you asked, what was the big finding? You know, the big finding for us was that there was a lack of exposure. There was a lack of exposure. There were bright young minds there. There was a lot of talent. There was a lot of passion. Frankly, there may have been even more motivation to change the world and create impact in some of those communities and some of the learners who we met there. The missing element was exposure. Many of them just didn't know what was out there. They didn't have access to some of the information that here in Nairobi seems to be present on billboards and in the newspapers here and talked about. And when we went there, we went to talk about how there are pathways for you to pursue what you want to do. If you want to change the world, here are some of the different university and college programs across Africa and across the world that can help you get there. And if you want proof of this, as you know, Cradle Cup, which is the largest high school pitch competition ever organized, is airing on KTN tomorrow evening. And one of the schools that's there is Kapsabet Girls. And I really encourage everyone listening to watch these girls as they pitch their idea and to see the passion that they bring around their own history, their own story, and why that's inspired them to pitch a business that could solve something that's important for their community.
Spice.
Shayne Amani Premji, he is the co-founder and CFO of Craydel. We'll shortly be talking about the Cradle Cup and the show that will be airing on KTN tomorrow night. But before that, you said you have a network of over 3,000, is it 3,000 universities from across the world?
We work with more than 300 universities.
300 universities.
But they offer more
yes.
than 30,000 higher education programs.
All right. How do you identify those universities?
So there's a couple of different ways that we like to do this. One is that, as you know, we're in many of the top high schools around the country. So when we go into these high schools, we talk to the students and we say, you know, what kinds of universities are you interested in? So we had a student in Nairobi who I think, Eric, you'll know, who came to us and said, I'm really interested in design. So we went and researched the best design universities around the world that were looking for students from Africa. We approached them and we said, look, we have incredible talent here. Let's work with you.
So that's how you do it. Many people, when they think about now, you know, universities abroad, they're also thinking, all right, it's going to be expensive. How can we take advantage of what we have? Can we get scholarships and all? Do your partners offer scholarships?
So there's an incredible quote I heard. Some might say it's a proverb. The proverb goes, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. So the first thing I want to say is that education can be expensive. And we believe, just like millions of Kenyans around the country believe, that it is a very wise investment into the future of our youth and the future of ourselves. Let's remember that higher education is not just for young people. We place a number of working professionals into master's and postgraduate programs around the world. But when it comes to the question of scholarships, the simple answer is yes. We have universities from different parts of the world who are so excited about welcoming Kenyan students onto their campuses that they've offered us scholarships you will never believe. And I think this is the power of information. This is the power of a platform. One of our fundamental beliefs is that the way to change this market is to make information freely available. It doesn't matter if you're in Meru or in Kisumu or in Nairobi.
Yep.
You shouldn't have to come into an office and look at brochures to have this information. You, from your mobile phone, you go to the website and you can see it all there for you.
Is there a hand-holding process? Somebody gets onto the sites, or is it pretty, you know, you can navigate
get onto the
easily.
site and
get onto the site and you say, well, there's the school that I'm looking for, apply for a scholarship, and, you know, bang, there you go. Or do you need some hand-holding to make sure that you're doing things right? You know, throwing out the element of frustration in terms of, am I doing this the correct way? And then is everybody who gets on that site looking for something guaranteed to find something?
So this is the future that we're building towards. We want this platform to be so self-service that a student can come on and find everything they're looking for, find the journey from start to finish, and be able to apply to university. But we also realize that there is a great power in having supporters and having experts to guide you along the way. So we have a team of admissions counselors. Now, these individuals are experts in universities, in applications and scholarships, in careers in some cases, and they can help students end to end with this process. And that process includes scholarships. And I think, Eric, to your question, do international universities offer scholarships? When you come to Cradle, what we really focus on is what can we do for our students? And one of those things is to secure scholarships. So we have universities in Europe, one where we've had 6 students attend in the last 4 weeks. And in this university, the tuition fee is it has a 70% scholarship for Kenyan students. So there's a 70% scholarship. These students are paying less than 300,000 shillings per year for tuition fees. We have another university in Germany, and this is the largest private university in Germany, highly ranked. They're offering a 67% scholarship for Kenyan students. So that normal tuition fee is 15,000 euros per year. For Kenyans, after this scholarship, and this applies beyond Kenya, this is for all of our colleagues across Africa, we've been able to secure a scholarship. So that fee comes down to 850,000 Kenyan shillings a year. Now, this is unheard of for a top international university, but this is the power of having a platform and of bringing information to the masses.
How does one qualify for this scholarship? Is it just simple application and then as long as you've been admitted, you get automatic scholarship?
Some of these universities offer automatic scholarships. So if you are an African student and if you apply and you meet the deadlines, you receive the scholarship. Other universities have merit-based and need-based scholarships. And in some cases, those scholarships actually apply for the entire 3 or 4 years of your undergraduate journey, or the entire 1 or 2 years of your postgrad journey, as long as you keep up a particular grade point average.
There's an interesting requirement that very many top universities or universities in the West have. It's to fill what you call a diversity quota, because there's need for them to have an international outlook, meaning representative. So it's not just people from one part of the continent or one part of the universe or the globe, but it's from... When this is considered, do students who come from the African continent have a better go at it simply because they come from this continent? Are they given preferential treatment, or are they given affirmative benefits simply because they come from Africa?
Most of the universities who we work with, they keep the entry requirements the same. Whether you are a KCSE student in Kenya, whether you have passed your WIAC exam in Nigeria, or whether you're a domestic student. But having said that, I think you're absolutely right with this diversity quotient. There is a need to bring on board more and more African students. And as a result, sometimes our university partners tell us that even if a student doesn't meet the exact requirements that we publish, please bring them to us if they're excellent students, because we want excellent students.
How much does it cost to get onto the Cradle platform? Or is there a cost? Or is it, anybody who wants to get on can get on?
So anybody who wants to get on the Cradle platform right now can go to cradle.com, Craydel.com, and they can start looking for universities, and they can make their application onto the platform. Now, in the schools that we work with, we do charge a small fee to work with those schools in order for the students to go end-to-end from the psychometric assessment all the way to the application. We've actually dramatically discounted those fees this year because we didn't want the fee to be a barrier. So that fee is less than 1,000 shillings per student as a lifetime value to use the Cradle platform.
So you pay 1,000 shillings and you can keep applying, you can keep looking, getting information that you need throughout as long as you would need to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
Now,
the 1,000 shillings works like a membership fee.
you could say it works like a membership fee.
A family membership fee or personal membership fee?
A personal membership fee.
Okay.
But I see where you're going.
Yes. Well, let me add on to it. So, is there a fee for family members and friends? You know that. In Kenya, we have to ask those questions.
You do.
Mhm.
And
So
if
you've
you
got-
have family members and friends, come to Cradle. We'll have a discussion. And I'll say that, along the journey, there are various fees. You have to pay fees for the application to the university.
Yeah.
In some cases, we've actually negotiated with universities to waive that fee. So we've said, don't charge a fee for our students who are applying.
Yeah.
We have to apply for a study visa. So in that case, we do charge a fee to our students to help them end to end through this process.
Right.
And of course, the embassy has their own fees depending on the country. But what we try to do is to really focus on how can we offer the experience that is better than anybody else in the market.
Yeah.
And that's better than you just doing it yourself at home.
Indeed. All right. So, do you ever get this question in terms of backlash, whereby essentially what's happening here is that there are hundreds of African students who are leaving Africa, and then there is a potential, and this is huge in terms of, brains, expertise, skills, talents that would essentially leave Africa, and the chance of them getting work in those countries where they've gone to school is also high. Chances of them returning to invest those skills and talent here then is less. So do you get any backlash in terms of aiding brain drain?
Now I'm on the hot seat. Now this is the real hard-hitting conversation I came to talk about. And I don't even think we have enough time to have this entire conversation, but let me give you a couple of thoughts around this idea of brain drain. Let me start with my own story. So my story begins 50 years ago, because that was the point at which my grandparents decided that they wanted to send their kids to Canada, primarily to get an education. My parents ended up going to university in Toronto. They actually met in that university. They got married in that university. A number of years later, my sister and I were born. And what happened in that next generation?
You went to Canada.
You know, he was already in
I
Canada.
was already in Canada. I was born in
You
Canada.
studied in Canada.
I studied in Canada. And then what happened? Where am I today?
Kenya.
I'm here in Kenya.
You're
and,
back here.
And what did my sister do after her undergraduate degree? She came back to Kenya. And both of us decided that we wanted to use that education. We wanted to use those sacrifices that our parents and grandparents made to create an impact back home. So this is something that I tell a lot of our students who are going abroad. I tell them that it is their choice what life they choose for themselves. They need to make that decision themselves. If they're going to Canada, if they're going to the UK, they can absolutely do their undergraduate degree or postgraduate degree, live in that country, work in that country, build a good life. If they have the openness to it, I challenge them to think about, could they come back? And many of our students do come back. They're going to get the education actually to come back and bring those skills back to the country, back to the continent. And I challenge them and I say, would you be open to coming back? Take what you learn and implement it here. And some of them say, no, we want to live abroad. We want that kind of life. And then I tell them, don't be surprised if your next generation, God willing, if you have kids, they might decide to go back and leave you there and say, we want to connect with our roots. We want to use what we've learned to build real change in this country.
You know what is of interest is that even as there is the quest for people to return back to the countries they go to are also vigorously trying to retain them. Because many Western countries, unfortunately, have an aging population. And so the need to have younger people into the country is actually an active quest that they have. They pursue people who already have graduated, but it is better if somebody actually studies there, gets to understand the place, and then actually settles there. Now, this is my question. Everything you're explaining, because you explain it so simply and so eloquently, it's easy to understand. But I don't think it is easy to get to a point where you have partnerships with universities where they trust your processes to the point where you can achieve what you're telling us that you do. How did you get to this point where universities abroad and universities of excellent repute actually entrust the processes that lead to their institutions to Cradle? How did you get there?
Sometimes, CT, we ask ourselves that same question. And we ask some of our early university partners, why did you trust us? And some of the things that they tell us is that given our backgrounds, so the Cradle team is extremely diverse. The founding team of Cradle is from 3 different countries, 3 different universities, 3 different backgrounds, 3 different skill sets. And the entire team at Cradle has actually studied abroad in various different countries, from Canada to France to Ireland to the Netherlands, Sweden, India, Uganda. I can go on. So we have experience of what it's like to be an international student. We've been in Kenya. I've lived in Kenya for almost 10 years. My co-founder Manish, the same. My third co-founder John is Kenyan. So we understand this market. We have a lot of relationships in this market. And we were able to very quickly prove that our ideas on how to do this entire process differently were proving true. But I think the most important question is not why did the universities trust us? It's why did the students trust us? Why did the parents trust us?
And what's the answer to that?
You can ask them. You can ask them. And when we do often, and what they tell us is that the experience that we've given them is so much better than what they ever expected. So on the one hand, we help them discover things they never even knew existed. Universities, courses, scholarships. On the other hand, we actually showed care, not just in matching them to a university, but also in what their personal journey was. So where did they want to go? Why did they tell us they wanted to study psychology? Did they just see a TV program, or were they really interested? We've actually told students who have said, we want to study this path, we've said, actually, we're not ready to do an application with you because we're not sure that you really understand what it means to do this. So go and do a little bit more research on this. Here are some resources. Come back to us in a week, and then let's talk.
The question then that comes to mind is this. As an organization, what would you say your organization is? Is it a non-governmental organization, a not-for-profit organization, a self-help organization?
A social enterprise.
Social enterprise. Okay, I've run out of things. What would you...
You ran out of things, but you missed the most important thing.
I was waiting for you to fill it in.
So we are a technology startup.
Yes.
We are a for-profit business.
Yes.
My personal belief and the belief of our founding team is that there's incredible work you can do starting an NGO or building a social enterprise. But to really create scale and to really create change, we wanted to build a business that was actually sustainable. And sustainable means that it makes enough money to cover its costs. And it's a business that international investors are willing to invest in because we want to grow and we want to grow and we want to grow and we want to serve more and more students across the continent.
Very well said. Cradle Cup. So there's a show that's coming up on KTN tomorrow night. Tell us about it.
So Cradle Cup is very innovative, and we're so excited about this. We were trying to do Cradle Cup for years, and we found the right partner in Ireland, a college called Griffith College, which is a very prestigious higher education institution. Cradle Cup is the largest ever competition organized between high schools in Kenya. And I say it's the largest ever because of the prizes that are available. So what we did earlier this year is we went out to all of the high schools we could get to in Kenya, and we said we wanted you to create teams of 3 to 4 students and pitch an idea, a very important idea, to solve kind of a problem that is in society today. We were blown away. We had more than 350 students apply from hundreds of schools around the country. And then we took those submissions to some of the top venture capital investors in the country. We took them to some of the top business schools in the US. And we said, let's review all of these submissions and let's choose the top ones. So earlier this year, we announced the top 50 finalists. And there was a really incredible, diverse group that made it to the top 50. We had a People's Choice Award. And one of the top national schools in the country, Kenya High, had a team that won the People's Choice Award. But the Cradle Cup itself is actually the top 5, pitching on TV to a panel of expert judges on their business idea. So that is airing tomorrow evening on KTN Home. And that competition is a very, very big deal because the winning team will win full scholarships for their entire undergraduate degrees at Griffith College in Ireland.
Oh, that's nice. And what happens to their ideas?
Now, this is the interesting thing. When we started this competition, we said, we'll have this business pitch, and that will be the end of it. And hopefully the university or college that they go to, Griffith, will help them further develop it. Griffith is very well known for entrepreneurship. What ended up happening? We had students who actually developed their own ideas, who actually started to commercialize their ideas, who started to talk to their customers about these ideas. And without our intervention, this is really speaking to the power of the youth in this country. They've already started down the path of building these ideas.
Oh, nice. So is there any guarantee that any of these 5 finalists, the ones who are the 50 finalists, the 5 who are on the show, they get an investment for their idea in addition to winning a scholarship?
So the primary prize for this Cradle Cup is the scholarship. And the idea is that all of these students are in high school right now. So they will get some encouragement from the school itself, from the college as they go to the college to further develop these ideas. But the real focus now is for them to think about, do they want to, study abroad? What does that journey look like for them? And when they go there, what types of programs do they want to study? And does that link to the businesses that they want to build? Or has this experience just taught them that there are so many different ideas out there that they can pursue, and they want to actually take the feedback that the judges gave and change those ideas or pursue other ideas in the course of their young careers?
What time does it air tomorrow?
So the Cradle Cup airs at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow on KTN Home.
On KTN Home. How long is it?
And it's an hour and a half. So it's a 90-minute show. We have some special guests who flew all the way to Kenya to be on the TV show. We won't tell you who they are, but I will say that there was representation from the embassy in Ireland, who was very much represented throughout the competition.
Oh, nice. Well, something to look out for. Tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. on KTN Home, the Cradle Cup. And also, if you'd like to go onto this platform and start browsing and see what you can do, cradle.com, Craydel.com. All right, and then you go and get all the universities, and I've seen there's also a number there. If you'd like to call and talk to somebody, you can call and talk to someone, and they can walk you through the journey of thinking for or about your next journey in education, not just for high schoolers, but also if you're thinking postgraduates. Thank you very much for joining us, Shayne.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Kabisa. 8 a.m. Time for the news.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.